two things popped into mind. First, I just last week read a Joe Haldeman novel that I left at your shelf, set on Mars, written in 2004, that has Martians in it. And he dances around where they came from and why and how. I can't remember the title of it.
Marsbound.
Marsbound, thank you. And yet, it's basically people come from Earth and meet Martians because that's the story we all wanted to read. And he invented an excuse to write that story. I can think of other lesser-known, books that show that we're in love with the story and we're going to continue telling the story even beyond. Well, and look at all the fantasy that goes on with elves and unicorns that we know at this point don't exist. The deeper thing, though, is which reminds me. Actually, I was speaking once on a panel with Lois McMaster-Bujold, who has written both wonderful science fiction that I like and wonderful fantasy that I like. And the fantasy involves an alien religion very much. It's very much not Christianity, but borrows a whole lot from it. So she looks to me as a Jesuit brother. She says, I hope you weren't offended by that. And I go, I wasn't offended by your faster than light travel, and I'm a physicist too. It's fun. That said, I'm reminded of a point made earlier this morning about the origins of exobiology. And they listed 2 or 3 publications that really got the field of exobiology going. They were discoveries that were all found to be wrong eventually. But it didn't stop people from saying, okay, this wasn't true, but it would have been cool if it were. Let's look again. Now we know what to look for, because this is fun. And I think that's what happens in science fiction.
Any reaction to that?
From
Lois tended, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Lois tends to use humans as aliens, the quaddies, the people that, they live in space, so they don't really need feet, do they? We'll have just 4 sets of arms, and stuff like that.
So again, she's been inventing her own aliens.
Well, actually, that's not accepting aliens. That's
she's having the human race inventing their own.
Exactly. And that kind of alien, I don't know about, I don't know enough about biology to know to what extent we could genetically engineer ourselves to have 4 arms instead of 2 arms and 2 legs. I really don't know. I don't know whether we can genetically engineer cats so that they have advanced intelligence and make fun of us like we make fun of them. I don't know, but it's more believable than selecting a particular kind of alien that comes to Earth and has a green face. Or is it? I don't know. But I think there is a tendency or sort of reaction to the wise aliens that come to Earth and talk to us or shoot us and kill us and whatever, because they are anthropomorphic.
Yeah, I just wanted to add an anecdote about your question about when did scientific enthusiasm for life from Mars begin to wane. And it turns out in the mid-30s, Edwin Hubble was writing the scientific justification for building what became the 200-inch telescope on Mount Palomar, and one of the topics he says was we're going to look for life on Mars, which is a little astounding. He didn't think he was writing science fiction at the time, but it turns out he was.
It's still an open question, so that's a valid thing to use a telescope for.
He wasn't proposing a Mars rover, though. He was looking for canals and things, right? So.
Came up earlier. I'm wondering whether you could tie in this desire to talk to aliens with sort of a Dr. Dolittle complex, that we want to speak to something else besides humans, and that maybe that would satisfy some of that. If someone could break through and talk to, have a conversation with an ape or a dolphin, that would satisfy some of that longing.
Michael Valentine Smith, for example, is really accepting of a lot of things that people on Earth don't really approve of, and I think that's a lot of science fiction fans are alternative culture, and I think for that reason they like the idea of, like you say, sort of a Dr. Dolittle that they can talk to and that will not judge them because they, I don't know, are obsessive compulsive or they have some other strange weird habit or things that they can't help too, like being dyslexic or left-handed or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, at the 1961 meeting here, John Lilly was one of the participants, and He was a prophet of the notion that A, dolphins are extremely intelligent, and B, we can probably talk to them. And that was, that had a lot of appeal, and it really, you know, people really liked the idea, just as you're saying, that that maybe we're not alone on Earth, and there's somebody we can talk to. So there may be something to this, and that turned out to have a lot of traction with the public. And you know, in the '60s, the dolphin became which nobody, I think, in the '50s. If you look at '50s pop culture, nobody has anything to say about dolphins, and they don't decorate your lamps or anything.
Telepathy and telekinesis.
Oh,
Same group.
Okay. Well, is that connected to dolphins?
Yeah, same. Lily was from Duke, wasn't he?
I don't know.
Am I right about that? Or am I made that up?
That was J.D. Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Catherine?
Well, I had John Lilly's story, which I'm looking for confirmation on from somebody who may have been there, and then I have a quick observation. The John Lilly story that I heard was from a talk that he gave towards the end of his life, when somebody was asking about psychic communication with dolphins, and he claimed that it should be possible in theory, but there was a problem because there was too much interference from the aliens. Can anybody corroborate this?
Well, it's consistent with his last few books. One of them had a plot of states of consciousness plotted as a function of tabs of LSD ingested.
Okay, thank you. Because I had this from a good source, so I was just wondering. And the observation that I have was that I think you've put collectively your finger on something really interesting. So we've talked about the cosmic imperative, the idea that life generates almost as soon as possible. I think what we're looking at here is a cosmic imperative of the imagination. So what you've identified is that as soon as Mars was a vacant niche, we had to populate it. And similarly, if we ever go long enough without detections, then we're just going to continue to populate the universe with creatures of our imagination because we need to.
Yeah. Chris?
It seems like however much we try to be scientific and dispassionate and logical, it is in the end always about us at some level. And so to me, the handling whether or not we're alone, it's not really dichotomous. Even the alone part is not dichotomous because either there is a lot of life of any kind, microbial say most likely, in the universe, fine, and some fraction of those microbial experiments generate intelligence and advanced life forms, fine. But then the issue of communication is a completely different thing, and it just seems with the little that we know, the likelihood that it's incomprehensible, that we cannot communicate or be understood. It's far easier to decide artificiality, non-natural signal states, geoengineering, whatever your evidence ends up being, than it is to have communication. So really, the alone part of this is the key. That's a very freighted, emotionally freighted word. And so to me, it's always about us. And I had that nicely put by a writer and a poet, Jennifer Michael Hecht, came to our place and gave a beautiful lecture. One of those amazing lectures of 75 minutes, just free-flowing, perfectly formed sentences and paragraphs as only a poet could do. And at one point she said, suppose we find, she wasn't speaking realistically, but she said, suppose at one point we find that there is something like an elephant, something like a dolphin on a planet, 10 light years away. We would think that, we couldn't understand, we couldn't comprehend, we just knew by observation and by behavior this was some amazing creature. And this creature, we would come together as a race and decide this creature was so magical, so special, so extraordinary that we would do everything we could to preserve it. And she said, but we have the elephants, we have the dolphins.
I think that the notion that we might be alone is just really unpopular in this room. And we're probably going to proceed the rest of the week on assumptions that we are not alone and see where that leads us down various paths.
Can I amend the question slightly? Could we as individuals accept that we are not going to communicate with extraterrestrial life within our lifetimes? That it's going to take 50 years, that it's going to take 100, that it's going to take 500, 1,000. Can we accept that? And would you, because I'm not doing this obviously, but could you go ahead and keep doing it even though you knew you weren't going to get a return in your lifetime?
Yeah, because you're learning how to do it better at each step.
Well,
You're making progress.
but you wouldn't, how would we really know? I mean, you could say, it's highly probable, it's probably going to take 100 years. But there's always the
There's always a
chance, and hope
chance,
springs
yeah.
eternal. I wouldn't say it at all.
Yeah.
You're a theorist, you see, telling me that it's not going to happen.
I don't know. I was asking. I was asking.
This is a fundamental human quality, it seems to me. People who built cathedrals that took 100 years to build knew that they weren't going to be there when they were built. And they were building them for a purpose that had no tangible return in life.
They're paid.
I'll bet they